Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a new episode of the X Button. My name is Alejandro, your co-host, and with me is also my lovely co-host.
Hi, I'm Paul, everyone.
How you doing,
Alejandro,
Paul?
it's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good.
You got some stuff going on there behind you, man.
Yeah, like I mentioned in the last episode, I'm traveling. So I came in to the US to get my vaccine, and that means that I wanted to keep recording. So my background looks different. So yeah, I have, instead of a black background, now I have a white background in an undisclosed location. So yeah, and also I got a little interesting thing in my face. For everyone that's seen my video, they'll see this thing grow real quick. Bro.
I can already see the 5 o'clock shadow going on. You're gonna be up to my level by the end of the episode.
Yeah, just imagine, just that kind of time loop. So Paul, how have you been?
I've been all right. It has been an extremely busy week. I am glad to oddly enough, Monday is actually one of the slowest days for me. And this is my day to actually recover somewhat over everything that's been going on. But we got up to some fun antics yesterday.
Oh, sure we did, which I think we can immediately dovetail into what have we been playing. Paul,
Oh, yes.
What have we been playing?
Well, I would say that we have been dealing with a lot of Destiny.
Yeah.
And if I can actually get this to share my screen right now, I am going to get this all the way figured out. All right. Yes, we have Alejandro, I've been kind of stressed out and traumatized from yesterday and in the events. Even just looking at this screen is making me stressed out right now.
You already have raid
Vault of Glass.
Yeah.
For
the raid that came out
yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Destiny 1 raid that got repriced in Destiny 2 that launched on Saturday. We actually played a little bit of it.
Yep, and I loved it and I hated it. It made me question things about myself. And I understand like your hesitation because of how important it is to have people that you can trust and that can actually follow what's going on, because I thought I was like a pretty bad new person to this game, but following some of the people that had far higher light rankings than I did really struggle with the logic and puzzles of the raid was it was a little rage inducing. It was a little bit difficult to come to terms with that, but we got about halfway through it. So I mean, that was a victory, and I got some nice stuff out of it.
Better than I did. I just got stupid armor.
Yeah, I'm pretty glad for that, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm surprised because if I didn't get anything good out of it, I probably wouldn't have wanted to even bother going back. So I'm glad that the beginners the casino thing where it's like, oh, you're new to this, we're gonna give you a good few victories and then we're gonna stonewall the crap out of you.
It really makes me wonder if that's how they tune in the RNG.
I'm wondering
because I only got one sniper and then all armor, and then you got the scout rifle and a sniper,
which I really like that scout rifle. I'm gonna try maining that. It's because like just the concept of a scout rifle that is also auto firing is
there's a few, but that one's
nice.
Very special. Especially
that was the first I've ever seen because that's how new I am to all of this.
But and now here's the thing: like you saw like some of the encounters, how long it took us, but you saw how every encounter we just kept getting better and better.
We did,
and it just kept us pushing, right? Like be like, look, we got farther this time. Let's try it again. We got even farther this time. Let's try it again and again and again. And that's to me that's always been like the beauty of raids to me, because it's a different kind of pace for a first-person shooter on top of that, because this is not just like for people, hopefully they can see the screen share whenever we put the video podcast there. Like it's a lot to keep up with the amount of enemies it starts throwing at you, but it's not just about shooting them. It's about figuring out a very specific set of mechanics to solve a puzzle. And we were not even using guides. And what's funny is that I have done this raid back in Destiny 1, most of you didn't, and it was fun seeing like the team that we were running with
Yeah.
figuring it out.
Oh, I
And
don't think a single one of them had done it outside of you and like maybe one other guy.
yeah, the guy, our clanmate Elix, which by the way, if anyone's interested in Destiny, wants to have a clan, join ours, Clan Chaotic. So
with two hyphens on either
yeah, with
side
type
of the
high,
word
yeah, with the
chaotic.
two hyphens,
Yeah,
because
don't forget.
there may be another chaotic out there. But
I
yeah,
guarantee there is.
yeah, but that's the thing. We stopped. At what time did you stop playing, Paul?
Midnight-ish.
Yes,
Yeah.
I stopped playing at 3 because Eastern time, by the way, because just as we were getting out, a guy that I ran raids with sent me an invite and brought me over to continue playing it, and I got to finish it, actually.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and
So
that was a trip.
answer for me then, how does that work with where you were in this raid?
It took me forward because he was in a different encounter, so I had to join in his instance. So whenever you're joining in a different player, they especially if you're joining the fire team leader, you're joining in to his instance depending on whatever checkpoint he has. So like for example, if we were to play later today, let's say, and you're the fire team leader,
yeah,
you would have the checkpoint where we left off.
Okay, what if you did though? Does that mean you lost your checkpoint?
Yeah, because I finished it. We would have to we would have to restart it. So
as long as you join on any one of us,
yes,
we could keep going. Okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, that's anything else that you were playing, Paul, other than Destiny? So we don't go into.
That was one of the only things that I was able to play. But let me tell you, I did get to play a little. Actually, yes. Knockout City came out a few days ago.
The Fortnite style volleyball game.
It is the stupidest of fun, I will say, because every time you hit somebody with the ball, it makes that classic dodgeball sound, that noise that I can't even try to replicate with my mouth, but you can hear it and you can smell it, whenever you got hit by one of those things in the face. And anyway, to grossly oversimplify it, it was a 3-on-3, more or less death match with dodgeballs in the center, and a surprisingly simple mechanic of catching the ball, throwing the ball, charging it. You have different balls that will give you different abilities, from like multiple shots to like a cage ball that wraps them up, and you can use the player as a ball to hit another person. I don't know if you've ever tried it or seen anything of it, Alejandro. I definitely suggest trying it out. It's free to play for like the next is probably 6 or 7 days, and then it's like $10.
I might. I saw videos of it, and I think it was either a State of Play or a Nintendo Direct that showed it. It definitely has the perspective of Fortnite. But
it does have a very like animated, heavily like stretched perspective.
Screen share.
Oh yeah, you're right. Let me find that actually. I can find gameplay of it right now.
Yeah.
Let's see this action.
As y'all can see, we're experimenting with this thing right now.
Yes. And then let me go over here real quick, do that, and then share screen, hit that button, and budding. All right. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see it, Alejandro, but hopefully our viewers can. Very simple, very like stretched perspective, very cartoonish features. It's like this sci-fi 50s style of like everyone's hair and outfits. Very grease, snap your fingers when you see the other team kind of vibe to it. But as you can see, there's a whole process of getting the ball from the other players. You don't have them to begin with. They're neutrally in the world as pickups. So you're racing towards them. You can do no damage on your own without a ball, but you can push to disrupt other players. So I have seen people push each other off the edges. You can glide across the wind and get to different areas. So it's a lot about positioning, a lot about moving forward. I'm jumping straight back into the rest of this. So you've got abilities and different things like that, but I think the simplicity is where it's really selling me right now. and I'm enjoying it immensely. However, I have seen a lot of people get very good at it, so I would not expect to. I would definitely expect to see the crazy 360 no scope quick match montages in the near future of people getting very snappy with this. But I enjoyed it immensely. Alejandro, have you been playing anything besides Destiny 2?
I actually did play. Okay, just give me a second. I'm just adjusting here something with my camera. There it is. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, there's something that my charger's not charging right now, but I'll make sure I figure that out. Okay. So I actually kept playing Mass Effect Legendary Edition, still playing through Mass Effect 1, still loving the heck out of the remaster work they did to that game. And I finished Mafia Definitive Edition.
Really?
Yes. And it's a game I don't recommend at full price. Absolutely not. Wait for that sale. The story remained great, but the gameplay just kept getting more and more repetitive, boring, and frustrating. Yeah. And the checkpoint system was downright abysmal later on. So yeah, here it is. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Mafia is so great at its storytelling. That is like the it's so funny. You're just showing the taxi scene. Yeah, the taxi scene that I was like screaming at, and like when we started book clubbing it, but parts of it look cool, but there's just so much crap in that game that I'm like, oh, it could have been so much better. Like, gunplay, if it didn't have a lot of like enough quirks to it that are just so unnecessary, I would have loved it so much more. But yeah, and those have been like the only 3 games I played. And also when I was traveling, because I also brought my Switch, I kept playing Super Mario 3D World. And yeah, it still enjoys. I still haven't beaten it, but that's still such a great game to play on a plane. So, well, but enough of what we've been playing, Paul. We got a handful of news after yesterday was a little bit on the...
We did.
How can I say it? On like the soft side. So
yeah.
So Paul, duty on Earth, press X
for some news.
All right. So Paul, it's ironically enough, almost a year ago, we kind of talked about this event being announced and happening. And it's so funny, almost a year later, we're here again. But now with the benefit of hindsight. So
continues.
So for people that don't know, we're so close to the Electronic Entertainment Expo, also known as E3, happening. And who else is doing stuff around that time, Paul?
Just about everyone, aren't they?
But someone specific. Someone that kind of took the baton when E3 disappeared last year.
That was Geoff Keighley, was that
Yes, yes. And Summer Game Fest. So after he did that Summer Game Fest last year, which when it was announced, it had so much promise before becoming what it was, he absorbed all that feedback and he's bringing it again. So like, we're not just going to get E3, which is from June 12th to June 15th this year. We are actually going to get his Summer Game Fest also. And not only that, he has a lot of participants also. So it doesn't mean that even though E3 is happening, it didn't mean that everyone wanted to go back to E3. They're actually partnering with this guy. And more importantly, the big feedback from him, and that was the thing that I mentioned when we came back with this show this year. Summer Game Fest, the idea was sound, but the execution was horrible. Yeah. Overextended. There was like no rhyme or reason to when we could expect announcements. It started really strong the first week with a couple announcements like Tony Hawk and other stuff. And then it went quiet. The Sony and Microsoft events kind of happened like months apart. Ubisoft was kind of thrown in there. He would announce maybe one game at a time. I don't quite blame him because that year in particular was when the pandemic started. So obviously he couldn't quite rely on them. But then at the same time, he was the one that put this event forward. So he should have known that not all the devs were going to have something ready. and it just became exhausted, very exhaustive. Like it was like, man, we're still in this, and it doesn't feel like we have learned that much from stuff. So the good part is that he's consolidating a lot into one day, even though he said to expect companies to randomly announce things throughout. But if you want like a big thing, June 10th will be the day. He's gonna have like a bunch of companies, including Sony, who recently has been gone too high for their own horses, to be like, we're gonna do our own thing. And they even skipped E3 again this year. They put their logo at Keighley's thing, so they might have an announcement on June 10th. What will that announcement be? It'd be fun if it'd be like, here we are to announce the date for our next state of play. That would be funny.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Or maybe a new game, or the date of an announced game, like Horizon that's supposedly still coming out this year. Maybe something about God of War that still had that 2021 date for some reason. So, and also you're just kind of like in the same vein as all of that. Microsoft also confirmed that they will have their big presentation at E3. So they're going to be part of that. And this time, because they already completed the Bethesda acquisition, they're going to be sharing presentation. So like every Bethesda, like instead of like when Bethesda used to have their own press conference, there's going to be a joint Microsoft Bethesda thing. Because what's funny is that even though they have acquired Bethesda, they're still making Bethesda a big deal, that they can kind of be autonomous in their own name. In a way,
they would try to, because they're really banking on the name of Bethesda more than anything that they've been making.
Yeah, but the idea was that they would allow Bethesda to have their own conference to showcase stuff. Instead, now they're mixing it all together, which to me, the less shows we have to keep up with, the better, personally.
Yeah, I'll go with that for sure. Especially living an adult life. I have a limited amount of time that I need to actually, do things. I can't sit around for an entire day or sit around for an entire summer of fun that I can just say, okay, well, let's see what's going on today in the gaming world.
By the way, you're like blending into your background. Like, going to that. You're going into the Nexus.
I'm falling into the X button.
Yes.
All right.
I also keep in mind, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, it's gonna release halfway through that.
I realized that you were just saying titles to Ratchet and Clank games. Oh Lord.
Yeah, I can't wait for that game. Hopefully I can have a PS5 by then. And also, and console watch for that, like none here in Florida. So
now that I'm thinking about it, one thing to add in as one little blurb: tomorrow Biomutant comes out. Alejandro, were you interested in that one at all?
It is. I was seeing some reviews. They seem a little mixed. So, but I'll be interested to hear more, because I don't just trust reviews. I want to hear what people also say. So
I like the concept.
Are you hearing that?
It's like just the barest, faintest amount of anything.
So what is it that I have this luck that no matter what I do, there will always be a background noise that's going to interrupt everything. So obviously we have our good friend, the Vegetable Man, always signaling.
Who showed up just a little after we stopped recording officially, just so all of our listeners can know.
Which is like clockwork all the time.
We beat him by like 15 minutes.
15 minutes, literally, because we just kept chatting, because we didn't just stop recording and stop talking. Sometimes we talk about other stuff. But that was just so funny. And then my dad had his cameo yesterday, like in the last episode. So now it's the construction crew from here. So,
but I do not hear it, actually. I will say.
Yeah, they've stopped right now. But hence why I'm recording in an undisclosed location, because those things are noisy. But yeah, the Summer Game Fest coming back. I'm excited because I always get hyped for new announcements. So I'm hoping that now that a full year in the belt has gone in and more people have gotten used to working from home, or maybe potentially going back to their offices because of vaccinations happening. So let's see. I also expect Nintendo to offer a traditional E3 Nintendo Direct around that time, unless otherwise stated.
True.
And speaking of Nintendo, okay, always looking to see how far they can push things. Nintendo has announced a new Amiibo, which cool if you're like love their Amiibos. Amiibos are cool toys that will be compatible with the re-release of 2011's The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword, which is coming in July 16, if I'm not misremembering. But yeah, but what's interesting is that usually amiibos cost $10 to $12. This one's interesting because it costs $25 freaking dollars.
I don't appreciate this.
Yeah. And on top of that, Nintendo has decided that this one is going to be one of those few amiibos, because that has stopped for a little bit, that they are adding functionality to the Skyward Sword re-release. And what this functionality will be is that you're going to be able to go from land to sky at a whim just by having that amiibo and pressing it. So basically, it's them admitting that Skyward Sword, as good of a game as it may be, has a lot of tedium in it. And with that toy, you can cut a little bit of that tedium, because now you don't have to find a statue to go back to the sky and back and forth, because there is just too much backtracking in that game. Way too much. Yeah, it's the first one. Is that first one?
That's the first one. I just wasn't sure if I wanted to do that.
Yeah, there it is, like in our screen.
Look at
that. So it's actually kind of cool looking when you look at it.
Gorgeous.
So, and that's the thing. Like, I think if it was just being sold as a thing, I wouldn't mind, because toys can be expensive, especially well-made toys. They deserve their money. But you're putting a huge quality of life improvement into buying a $25 toy.
Mm-hmm.
EA and Ubisoft, very notorious with their microtransactions. They are so notorious at adding the $10 time savers, either for multiplayer or even freaking single player, especially in Ubisoft's side, with like its latest Assassin's Creed games. And Nintendo is charging for up $25.
That's what messes me up, because if it was like the $12 that most amiibos are, or at least most that I remember costing, I would still think it was ridiculous, but not to the extent of almost what this game should have cost.
Yes. And here's what's even funnier. You know how much the digital version of the Wii version of this game is that you can buy on Wii U?
It is less than the amiibo that they are selling.
I swear, I tell you, because we're not going to name names, because we had an argument about this with someone.
Yeah.
But this is unacceptable. Completely, utterly unacceptable. And it just goes to show that the kind of like power Nintendo has, that they can do something so crappy like this. Like, charge this much for a quality of life improvement to a game that's so known for its tedium.
Mm-hmm.
And some people would dare defend this. I don't care if you buy the toy, because toys, collector's items can be expensive. That's not the problem. It's the thing that they're tying to this. And also people make the argument, but there's a bunch of statues and all that. But just the fact that you can do it with the toy and go everywhere, like just put the toy, boom, back to the sky and back to land, back to the sky, back to land. For a game that, like, the thing that I'm just looking at betas right now, that streaming part, like all the fetch questy thing, like, because I'll just say it here, like, based on the Wii version I play, like, this is my least favorite 3D Zelda game of all time. It is my least favorite.
I have a lot of gaps in my Legend of Zelda, so I can never say if it's like for sure my least favorite.
But have you played all the 3D ones? At least the one that you move in a 3D. Which one have you not played?
I haven't played Majora's Mask.
Are you kidding me?
I never will. I have a lot of problems with the anxiety that game creates. Just the concept of like a ticking clock has always messed me up. And I know that I will never be able to really enjoy that, because it'll always be hanging over my head.
I will say this: the N64 version was pretty bad towards that, but if you have any chance to have the 3DS with you,
I have a 3DS.
The 3DS version of Majora's Mask included a lot of quality of life that helps with that.
Here's my other problem is I couldn't finish Ocarina of Time on 3DS because it made me nauseous.
I finished it on 3DS without using the 3D. You can turn
I
off the
know, but
3D.
I had no 3D on it. It's just I think it was the process of looking down at the screen.
Oh, okay.
Because I just couldn't really play much 3DS at all after a while. I really tried to.
It too small of a screen.
I think so. If it was put up on a big screen, I'd probably wouldn't have a problem with it. But yeah, that was a bit of a problem for me. I played through, of course, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, now Breath of the Wilds. Um, I played through Spirit Tracks
Oh, the
back in the
DS one.
day.
Yeah.
I really liked that one at the time, but that was when I was a lot younger as well, and I could handle that a bit more. But honestly, my Legend of Zelda game library is surprisingly tiny.
How it goes for me, like if I would be ranking all of that, at least it's the 3D ones, to me personally. Um, Wind Waker would be number one. I always switch between that one and Ocarina of Time.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought Wind Waker was just so much more special to me. Like, and the style of that game has just hold up so spectacularly. Then goes Ocarina of Time because of the story of that game is just so amazing. Controversially, then I go Twilight Princess. I really like the edgier style that game kind of pursued, and I really, really like the story, and the dungeons are excellent. Then I go to Majora's Mask down there because unlike you, like the time mechanic, which initially seemed so stressful, added a special sense of danger and eminence to everything you did in that game, and the way you can game that game into kind of figuring it out. It's so cool, and like some of the boss fights that you fight when like your time is the time's ticking, like gives a certain amount of like the feelings you get just trying to beat those bosses before hoping
Considering
the day
how
doesn't
much
end.
you love Vaulted Glass, that makes perfect sense.
Yes,
that
no,
you would love it.
Exactly. There's just something about that kind of high stakes kind of gameplay that is so cool. But you have to be willing to kind of like accept the game on its terms, and be able to kind of game around it. That's what's so fun. Is like the game presents itself, but then you can find ways to circumvent it that it's allowed by the game. Then after that,
excuse me, I agree. Like to an extent, it's really enticing for something, and I mean that's why you have your Dead Risings being so popular, and even the I don't even remember what it was called, but the Final Fantasy 13, the third game that was in that, also had the same mechanic.
Also had it comes straight from that. Yeah, lightning returns.
That's what it was called. And I really tried to get into that, but I just realized that I was having so much of a stressful time trying to go through all the side quests and make sure I had enough to like reset the time, and I was like, I'm not even having fun anymore. I'm just stressing out about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's fair that a time mechanic like that can be seen as like stressful for some, and to each their own. To me personally, that's just something that just puts it a little higher to me. Then after Majora's Mask, I would put Breath of the Wild. Like, I'm of the opinion that Breath of the Wild is like a revolutionary open world game, but as a Zelda game, it falls so short towards what I expect from that series. Like, compared to the other ones, that the Zelda parts of that game are not as memorable to me as the sandbox and open world it does. So like, it's a game that I highly respect and totally deserves the accolades. And for my money, it's still the best Switch game. But if you ask me, I'd rather play the other Zelda games. Like,
I'm gonna have a slightly hot take, as in a little lukewarm. The craziest thing could have been interspersing Breath of the Wild with the Hyrule Warriors game.
That would have been amazing.
If you had moments where you went back and played as Link in the middle of the war without breakable weapons to just show how awesome it all was.
Let me put it this way. If there were no breakable weapons in Breath of the Wild, that game would have skyrocketed even higher. But breakable weapons break that game for me.
I think it breaks it. You could repair maybe like New Vegas or something where it's like, or Dark Souls. Like, you can break it and it will exist, but it just won't be very strong at all. And then the ability to like refix everything yourself, use things that you find in the world to make them back the way they were, rather than being paper mache cutouts of weapons, I think would have been far more interesting to me personally. But I will say really love the exploration and the adventure. That game changed something in me, where I was more of the, I'm going to do each of these missions as quick as I can, finish the story, and then I get burnt out because I just play the heck out of the game. But Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild had this like forcibly put in mechanic to stop me from doing all of the things as quickly as I wanted to make me experience the world around me. And then that's changed the way I have seen every other game since, to force
Makes
myself
sense.
to slow down and experience the world so I don't get that burnout. And then it's caused me to actually enjoy games that I previously burned through far more. Case in point, going back to Horizon Zero Dawn. And I would dare say that's the only reason why I actually went back to Destiny 2 as well, or Red Dead Online, because the worlds, the enjoyment of it all, walking through. In Destiny, you have your vault of glass, you have your stars above you, in the middle of all of the chaos, that kind of makes me sit back and be like, wow, this is actually really pretty, before you go right back into the all, you know?
Makes sense. Yeah. And and then after Breath of the Wild for me goes Skyward Sword. Like those are all the 3D Zelda games, like officially mainline ones. And Skyward Sword, to me, the only thing that I put praise to that game is its story, because they had a really interesting emphasis on story compared to other entries. But so much of that game has problems. The controls were a problem. The design of how you go to different places felt too fragmented and was a problem. The amount of backtracking in that game is a problem. That, going back to this thing, because we went in that ranking Zelda tangent, at least for me personally,
Yeah.
that anything to make the tedium of that game be cut would have made it better. And it sucks that something like that, as tiny as it may seem, is put in a toy purchase. And that's just, to me, like, no company deserves a free pass when you put like a time saver, because the existence itself of a time saver is you admitting that something in your game is wrong, no matter what you like. There's no way to twist it. Like, you don't do time savers on a game if a part of it is not wasting your time, as little as it is, because you're putting the idea for it. Like, just being able to skip something like that, it's you putting it and admitting that there is something a little bit in there that is disrespectful of anyone's time, depending on how anyone's willing to have their time disrespected. And to me, it's unacceptable. And it has made me a little bit less excited about the release, because I wanted to play, because I'm like, at least it has stick controls for the combat, for it to be played like in handheld mode and all of that. But knowing that then something like that was kind of carved up for a toy purchase, it's just gross. So yeah, moving on from that.
Yeah.
And if you defend, whoever you are, if you defend that, you're a simp. That's what that's what it is.
Question why you are agreeing with
a corporation willing to screw you over.
that is a good decision to come to.
Yes.
Question.
All right. So moving on, because I have to like try to speed through this before my computer dies, because for some reason it's not charging.
Oh no.
So okay. So if you're a fan of games from the previous generation that get performance patches to take advantage of a new console hardware, good news. The Last of Us Part 2, Naughty Dog's very notorious, controversial masterpiece from the end of the generation, is getting as of right at this moment, already has a PS5 patch.
Yes.
And yes, Paul, this game wasn't 60 frames when it came out. It was a very smooth 30.
Okay, you're gonna loud cap me in front of everybody like that. But yes, I actually thought that it was already at 60 frames per second at the time. I was playing on the PS4 Pro, and I did not realize that it was actually still at 30 frames per second. So it was clarified for me.
Yeah, because the thing is that game performs so well with so very few frame rate drops. Obviously, right now, because of the video, it looks a little choppy. I don't know how it's going to translate.
Oh, for me, it looks great, but I guess it wouldn't.
Yeah, for me, because of the computer that I'm at. But it's like, when you have a game that has a very smooth 30 and then you do like motion blur and all that, it makes it seem smoother than it is. That Stranding was like that also. So it could trick your mind, even though it's like the frames are still capped at a certain amount. I saw videos from Digital Foundry of the game running at 60 frames, and it's transformative. And it just makes me think how much better things like the gunplay will be with like more data and all of that. And
I did hear one thing that makes me curious is that while the game is set to 60 frames per second, the motion blur was
it's turned
not
off.
fixed.
Yeah.
And well, it's sometimes turned off, but I think as default, it is at 30 frames per second. So if you're not paying attention or you're not careful to fix that, you'll have this really smooth movement, and then the motion blur will kick in at half the frames.
Yeah, and the thing is, motion blur has to be pre-baked into I'm gonna say this into the shutter speed. And probably why there's no motion blur at 60s was because it was baked in for it to look smoother at 30.
Interesting.
So, and the thing is that you have the option. You can like keep it at 30 if you want. Like the game already performs really well.
Oh, but so it lets you change it back if you want?
Yeah. There's a toggle. You go to the options, there's a toggle there.
Okay.
So I think, and to me, like I'm at a point where 60 frames or nothing. Like 60, like now that we have machine, especially because I got to see it on PC. Obviously, I don't have a next-gen console, but getting to really experience super smooth 60 frames is breaking games for me now, where I used to be fine with 30. And I think it's doing the same thing for you.
It has for sure. And it's actually made me consider genuinely buying the special edition of DMC5 just for those 60 frames. But
the thing is that the game was already at 60 frames on PS4 and PS4 Pro, but but the extra stability, and it actually can go up to 120 frames if you have a monitor or a TV that allows for that. So
that's what I'm realizing now is the bouncing back and forth is what messes me up more than having a stable lower frame rate. And if it jumps all over the place, then I'm like, whoa, okay, something's all of a sudden it like caught up to itself and then it dropped back down. That's one reason why Fallout was messing with me for so long back when that was a thing. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah, no, Fallout is notorious for having horrible frame rate.
So yeah, I would say that just the awesome jump and the stability for all of these things going on has been just fantastic to see all of these old games go. I mean, I say old games, but games that really didn't have the tech that we needed. And now it's not really about the photorealistic graphics. It's not about the realistic colors of that weird grayscale era. It's more about making it as smooth as you can for ease of use, for quality of life, for accessibility, as we see with Last of Us 2, making it one of the few games that you can play as a completely blind person. Just the things that you could change to make that happen. I didn't even think that was possible. But then
they figured it out.
When they figured it out, I was like, well, goodness gracious, let's do that for more. And like, let these people experience the amazing stories that we are taking for granted and complaining about on Twitter.
Yes.
I'm all for this new phase of games for sure.
And I'll say that this gives me more reason to replay a game that I platinum whenever I get a PS5, whenever that moment is. So yeah, if you're interested to have a reason to play this game at a smoother frame rate, you have that option. It is completely free. Just keeping this. The interesting thing about this is that this probably means that they're not doing a Last of Us Part 2 remaster like they did the original, because they just patched it. Because
that's
before,
true, but I mean, I'm
there's also
okay
but remember, there's also that rumor floating that a necessary remake of the first game is still coming. That's supposed to make the game look like this, which I mean,
I don't know what they mean by like remake, as far as like how much is being replaced and how much is just being bumped up is what I'm wondering.
If it's like the Shadow of the Colossus remake that replaced everything while still looking how you remember it, but better, I think maybe that's what they're doing. And the rumor is that
new textures.
Yeah, and the rumor was like the floating rumor after the Bloomberg report happened is that they're remaking the game to look like 2, which is a leap in gameplay and feel.
Okay.
Pack it in with the second game and also include factions, the multiplayer that wasn't in the in this thing, which
I
is still
thought they
something
were
they work.
trying to institute that in this at some
Supposedly, but apparently, like the rumor is that whenever factions comes in, it's gonna just be on PS5. So
I mean, that makes sense.
yeah, especially by the time where we're at now, it would make sense. So yeah, exciting stuff. That's still Last of Us Part 2 is still my game of the year. I know you didn't like it as much, but that was my favorite game of last year. So
I'd say respect where it's due.
Yes,
for sure.
Even though I also agree with you that Naughty Dog's time has come, and I hope other Sony studios get even more limelight, kind of like God of War did back in like 2018. I think they have a huge roster that they all deserve their time to do something as special as what Naughty Dog did. So this one's an interesting one because this one could be seen as something that it affects more the entertainment world, but it also affects gaming. Yeah. Also, like AT&T, who back in 2018, they made a huge purchase of Warner Media, which for the people inside baseball is like the reason why the original version of Justice League was so screwed up. It was because they were not willing to delay that movie because this merger purchase was happening and the execs wanted the bonuses of having this movie out before the merger came in. That's the reason why like that movie had Mustache Gate. That's the reason why like they didn't give more time for the special effects. They needed to take that movie out no matter what because it was already set in stone. So after 3 years, AT&T, and also I didn't put it this year, after $150 billion in debt, they're like consolidating off their Time Warner division and they're going to mix it with a new partnership with Discovery, the people that do the Discovery Channel and all of that. And the interesting fact about this merger isn't just what's going to happen to Warner Brothers and its subsidiaries, is what's going to happen to WB Games. Because apparently in this merger, it's going to like split up what goes where. So like over at Discovery, some studios are going to be under there, and then AT&T will keep those. It's a huge mess. And this is going to leave the fate of studios like Monolith, who did the Middle Earth games, Shadow of War and Shadow Mordor, Rocksteady, the Arkham game, the guys that made the Arkham games are currently working on Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, WB Montreal, the guys that are doing Gotham Knights, NetherRealm Studios, the guys that make Mortal Kombat and Injustice, and others like Traveler's Tales, the guys that make the Lego games. Their future right now is in flux as this is still kind of figured out. And it's something, I think it's still a developing story because we don't know like the solids, but I'm worried for them because what happens when mergers like this happen, Paul?
Everything that we love gets crushed underfoot and kind of forgotten because as much as gaming is a huge business, when it comes up into next to everything else that's in like the mainstream of life, they don't seem to value the game side of it, no matter how much money it makes, and it just kind of gets lost in the end.
The big fear, layoffs. Every time that you make something, there's always the fear of layoffs, and I worry that what could happen to these studios, like if they start getting merged with anything, and what their new corporate conglomerates will see will be the appropriate business path forward for them. So terrifying stuff for these studios, especially because they have games that I'm very interested to see in the next year or two.
Games that are pillars of the gaming community between, I mean, the ones Mortal that you just listed off, like that lists 4 or 5 massive series that are very beloved by everyone right now. Like from the Arkham, you've got your Shadow of Mordor and War, you've got your Mortal Kombat, and everything else that's in between. And I genuinely worry about that because those are some of my favorites.
Same.
I'm not a huge fighting game guy, but I can really appreciate and respect what Mortal Kombat is doing, especially recently with the resurgence of like pop culture icons being in the game. Amazing move.
And the Mortal Kombat game story modes are like the best in the business for people that are like not just playing with friends. So,
and say what you will about the movie, but I'd say
the movie was fun. I enjoyed the movie a lot for what it was, especially and. You can still watch it on HBO Max. Yeah, it could have been so much worse. Like just keep in mind where we're coming from. Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Yeah.
That abysmal piece of crap.
The YouTube videos that was like a mini series.
Mortal Kombat Legacy.
That's what it was called.
Yes.
Yeah.
And final story. THQ Nordic, the
Yes.
the resurrected company. I want to call it like the company that absorbed the THQ name and then went on a buying spree with their enforcers at whatchamacallit, at the Enforcer Group, that they have like this 60 studios now, which is insane. They announced this week that they're bringing back the heads of what used to be Free Radical Entertainment, which was a first-person shooter studio that had some great talent back in the day. And they're bringing back an amazing series that we're looking a video at called TimeSplitters, which for people who don't know, it's like it was a first-person shooter about a time traveler whose feel is like GoldenEye 007 on N64 and Perfect Dark, because it's the people that used to do those games. 3 of these games came out in the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube era, with the original TimeSplitters actually being a launch game on PS2 back in the year 2000. Then a sequel came out in like 2002, 2003. And then the final game, TimeSplitters Future Perfect, which we're looking at it right now, came out during, came out in 2005, the year that the Xbox 360 came out, and was the final game in the series. And right now you've actually put in the zombie level, which is hilarious.
I have zero context for this, as I did not play any of these when I was younger, and I wish that I had, because just looking at how ridiculous all this is.
Yes, it's over the top. It's fast-paced, arcadey shooting, with ridiculous scenarios. Like right now, this is literally a zombie movie. Like, you go back to the 1990s, and it becomes like an all 1990s zombie flick. so yeah, those games were fun, and they were fun to play co-op. And I'm excited because this is the kind of first-person shooter we don't get anymore. First-person shooters are more self-serious or more competitive and all that. And like as you skip on, you see it now, he's in the future. There's like the futuristic guns there. And I think what makes this interesting is that this studio was dead. This studio got killed in 2008 when they made this PS3 exclusive game called Haze. That had like that.
I remember that one.
Yeah, the cover was iconic. It had like a guy with a Jello mask.
That
game was bad. It was so bad it killed that studio, and the remnants of that studio got absorbed into Crytek UK, who did and eventually did Homefront: The Revolution, which was not very good.
Yeah, I remember about that one too.
Especially because the first Homefront, done by different people, was actually a decent game. And unfortunately, yeah, and then that game got absorbed by that company got absorbed by Deep Silver, which then got absorbed by the Enforcer Group that is part of THQ Nordic. So it's a very interesting story for this unfortunate series, because they actually were planning on making a TimeSplitters 4, Free Radical, and because they went down on after Haze, it never happened. So almost 16 years later, they're just starting. That's the thing. They just ran. So the game, then whatever this new game is, doesn't really exist yet. But man, if I'm not excited, yeah.
The rumors around it.
Not rumors, it's confirmed. They're working on it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they came forward. They came forward officially being like, we brought back these guys. We're bringing this series back. When? Who knows?
We don't.
So yeah. So that's the end of the news. Hopefully this didn't seem too rushed, because I am. I don't even know how long we've been recording.
I realized that like partway through this that I had no idea what how much time it's been, but
that's the beauty. When it's assumed, you can record as long as you want. If it's just 2 people, if it's 3, it's like 45 minutes. So
right. Oh, you know what, Alejandro, I have one last thing to briefly mention.
Go for it.
I feel like it's video game related, as the series on Netflix, Castlevania, just had its 4th season.
Final season on top of that.
Yes, final season, as Netflix was canning that. But I did hear 2 things, one of which you told me, the other of which being that they are going to make a new series with
spin-off,
the same, with different characters, I think. But it's going to be a spin-off with Castlevania still in their universe. And then also that the same crew is working on a Devil May Cry animated show.
That I told you that news from like 3 years ago.
And I missed that somewhere. But considering the work and effort they put into Castlevania, I'm very excited for that. But to give it the respect it's due. Castlevania, for anybody that did not watch it, I wasn't a huge fan of season 3, but the entire thing spans an immensely satisfying and concise storyline.
And I was a big fan of season 3 because of the steps it took to make season 4 so great.
It laid the foundation, especially after the kind of final approach of season 2. It introduced a lot of plot threads, a lot of characters, a lot that I was not sure about. But seeing it pay off in the following season very much makes it worth it, and it makes me realize how important a good ending is
for everything.
Because I was not ready to enjoy Castlevania again after that, but after the season 4 finale, I want to go back and watch the whole thing again.
What day is today, Paul?
The 24th.
What happened 5 days ago, 2 years ago?
Are we going to talk about Game of Thrones again?
Yep. just really quick. So what happened to the show when they didn't stick the landing?
Exactly. It is gone completely. Any mention of it in pop culture, you have merchandise here and there, but it's not even close to the way it was. It is a black mark. On the
forever.
community.
And even though they announced the prequel, they started showing.
Nobody really cares.
No, it just brings back the PTSD of how bad that they bungled that final season for a show that was such a cultural phenomenon that it's ready to disappear like this.
I just feel bad for all of the poor girls that were named Daenerys.
Yeah.
That have to live with that for the rest
of their lives.
Which y'all can look it up. It exists, and I feel very bad for them.
Super, super, super bad for them too. So, yeah, Paul, that's it for the show. Is there any game that you want to keep doing book club for, especially now that I finished mine and it wasn't you enjoyed RE3?
I finished that. I'm gonna decide if I want to get Biomutant, and I'll let you know if I get that and what my thoughts are gonna be on it.
I'll let Mass Effect Legendary Edition to continue being my new book club game because that's the other game that I'm playing right now,
you've got 3 games to digest in there.
Yeah, but at least and Mass Effect 1 is the important one because that's the game that got the most rework. 2 and 3, I don't expect it to be so different because those games were solid back already on 360. Like I mentioned, I think what it was last show that I played on the 360 versions of those games in backwards compatibility last year, so around during lockdown. So I'm not expecting much on it, but I really want to see everything through in Mass Effect 1 now because now that the gameplay is not borderline unplayable in the 2020 context, I'm more inclined to explore. I'm more inclined to go do most of the side content because before the gameplay was just so old feeling that I didn't want to bang my hand against the wall.
Yeah.
So yeah, that will be my book club game. And if you get Biomutant, that may be yours if you end up buying it. Do you have an alternative just in case? So we have a little bit of homework.
I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I will have one by next week for sure.
Yes. Said you can tell that to me off screen and then you can reveal it.
All right.
Let's say it's Biomutant, but if you end up not going for it, you'll decide.
Yep.
So thank you everyone to tune into now this experimental episode of the X Button where we hopefully the screen sharing shows. Let's see.
X Button on the go. Portable
X Button on the go. So this is going to be my reality until mid-June. So hopefully it's not going to affect much of the quality, and we will continue to try to do our best to upload episodes in around the same time frame. Willing if I'm able to edit it in a computer that it's not as capable as my other one.
Right.
So,
but at least this time we can get out ahead of all the craziness and let people know in the previous episode that things are going to be a little different for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and at least we have the will now to keep on going, to not miss a week.
Amen to that.
But the good thing is that since we're also on podcast services, like I mentioned at the end of last show, and I'm reminding here, that will be very easy to upload. At least audio versions of that show won't be a problem. So we will continue. The X Button will continue unabated. So, Paul, where can people find you?
You can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter, at Angel Sword 21 on Twitch, and also Dork of Art on YouTube for now, but mostly here.
Yeah, you can find me, Alejandro Segovia at _Dro on Twitter. And you can find me also on Twitch, twitch.tv/the Slayer Giant, which I won't be able to stream anything there for a little bit because I don't have my equipment here, but
Yeah, right.
just keep that in mind for whenever that ends up happening. So, and I also, I always keep forgetting about my website, The Critical Corner, which is going to be under the XCape Media umbrella, but all retaining its name. That's where reviews that we end up writing, if we end up writing anything, will always be. So, yeah, that's it. Paul, thank you for your time. And thank you all for your time. We appreciate everyone that listens to our show. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share the might and magic of the X button. So until next time, press X
to play.
See you guys later.